Welcome to a heartbreaking new episode of the Demonic Compendium, the show where I discuss the mythology, design, and game history of your favorite Megami Tensei demons. So, as you all know, this Valentine's Day, a certain something was supposed to happen that's been pushed back a couple of months. And I'm sorry, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room here. Because today, we're talking about Ganesha. Ganesha is one of the most iconic deities in Hindu mythology, but is also worshipped throughout Buddhism and Jainism. He is often seen as a deity of prosperity, wealth, and the ability to overcome any obstacle. He is most recognized for having the head of an elephant, but just how did he come about getting this peculiar pachyderm perm? Ganesha's Compendium entry in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne refers to him as the elephant-headed god in Hindu mythology. He was originally created by Parvati out of dirt to prevent anyone from watching her bathe. Shiva knocked his head off, but replaced it with an elephant's head. Aside from this story, there are a couple of other explanations. Some stories tell that Parvati's brother Shani burned the young deity's head off at a party with only a glance, and Vishnu sent Garuda to fetch him a replacement. Another variation explains that Ganesha was initially born/created with an elephant's head, and that his altercation with his father Shiva didn't result in the loss of his head, merely the breaking of one of his tusks via Shiva's axe. The broken tusk is symbolic in mythology of taking the good in life with the bad, and like how he got the elephant head, Ganesha's broken tusk also has several variations for how it came into being, but we'll get back to that. One of Ganesha's biggest vices is that he's a bit of a glutton for sweets, so much so there's a story of him eating a bunch of cakes, and while riding around, his mount got scared by a snake, knocking Ganesha onto his belly, causing his stomach to burst. This seems a bit disturbing, but Ganesha, being a deity of overcoming obstacles, uses the cause of his accident, the snake, as a makeshift belt to literally hold himself together. What a great attitude! As far as design goes, Ganesha has been around since the very first Megami Tensei, and we even have some artwork of his design from Megami Tensei 2. This has worked mostly as a blueprint for the rest of the series. 'Cause he's blue. The most frequently used design of Ganesha is this one, which goes all the way back to the very first Shin Megami Tensei title. Like usual, Kaneko filled the design here with details relating back to the elephant god's origins and mythology. His big round belly represents his gluttony, while his large crown is a traditional accessory of Hindu lore, but the size of it compared to some of the other deities invites and welcomes big thinking, while the sword he carries was often used to cut away attachments or obstacles that lie in the path to success. One of the most interesting things about this design is we can see both of his tusks intact in Shin Megami Tensei 1, but in Shin Megami Tensei 2 and If, we see the sprite has changed to having one of his tusks broken. However, Ganesha's 3D model in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne reverts to him with two full tusks, but in Persona 3 and 4, his artwork does not reflect his model, as the artwork was based on the original SMT1 design, but the 3D model deviates from the Nocturne model to have his broken tusk. Ganesha had another design that was introduced in the first Devil Summoner game, where he appears as a much more regal, godlike variation, as opposed to the almost warrior-esque design we're accustomed to. This design has been reused for his appearances in the two Shin Megami Tensei 4 titles, which is pretty cool. It's always nice seeing old designs making a comeback. As you can see, this design incorporates Ganesha's broken tusk and shows us a Ganesha with a few more arms than usual. In two of these hands he carries two separate axes. Ganesha is known for carrying an axe, like the sword was used to cut away non-necessities in life, but the other axe may possibly represent Shiva's, and a nod to one of the stories as to how his tusk was broken in the first place. Lastly, we see this version of Ganesha also sporting that nice round stomach, only if you look closely, we can see Kaneko did incorporate a seam from where his belly burst after eating all those cakes. And he's even got a band wrapped around his torso holding it all in. It's just good design work on Kaneko's part. As far as game history goes, Ganesha has quite a bit to offer. As a high-ranking deity, his level is often very high, usually appearing at a minimum in the 40s, and more often than not up in the 50s, 60s, with his strongest being in the relatively recent Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse at level 72, where although he didn't get a new design, was shown as a recurring demon in the Divine Powers. Ganesha is frequently portrayed being weak to electricity, and you'll never guess who usually has that element up his sleeve. That's right, Daddy Shiva shows us that sometimes lightning does strike the same place twice. And that place is right on Ganesha's face. Ganesha is a very unique demon in the franchise due to being a demon specifically mentioned by name in the Compendium entries of a handful of other demons in the series. The demon Kongitin is a Japanese deity whose Compendium entry refers to it as Ganesha's form in his Buddhist aspect. while another Buddhist demon, Shoten, from the Raito games, uses an altered model of Ganesha, right down to the broken tusk, and says in its compendium that it is equivalent to Ganesha of Hindu mythology. And lastly, the demon Persky mentions Ganesha by name in its original SMT entry and its Nocturne entry, which tells us, although his looks suggest Ganesha's influence, he is thought to have originally been a local god of Tibet. Speaking of Persky, the only way to obtain Ganesha in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is by grinding Persky up to the proper level, so he'll evolve into Ganesha, who is unobtainable through normal means. In the Demi-Kids games, Ganesha was localized as just Nesha, and is one of the powerful demons obtained in the game by reviving him from a fossilized zombie form, referred to as Nesha Zam. In the Digital Devil Saga duology, Ganesha is really not significant at all. Which is weird, because those games are so heavily centered around Hindu mythology. How'd Ganesha get left out of that? Ganesha has appeared in many of the Persona games. In the first game, should the player have Shiva equipped and talk to the demon Ganesha, the two will have a brief conversation. In Persona 3, players can win a Ganesha bank from the mall's arcade game, and in Persona 4, for her penultimate request, Margaret will task the player with fusing a Ganesha with the Tetrakarn skill. This can be easily accomplished by fusing Cucullin with De Carabia, both of whom I would not mind talking about on the show someday. And as a final note, Ganesha made an appearance at the 2015 Tokyo Game Show in a trailer showcasing him as the first example of how demons can become personas in the upcoming Persona 5. Where look, broken tusk. And so there you have it, Ganesha, the broken-tusked bodyguard of the bathhouse. Did I leave out something you thought was important? Was I just plain wrong about something? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to let me know who you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. That's going to do it for this episode of the Demonic Compendium, and I'll see you next time. But be careful while you rest that a demon doesn't take over your body.